Greetings, nerds. Being the nerd, I'm your host, Sarah Belmont, and with me, as always, is our Mr. Producer, Will Polk. How are you doing tonight, Will?
I survived November. That's all, October, and hopefully we'll survive November as well. But yeah. I'm like, yeah, it's been one of those kind of months where it's just like, man. But yeah, I got through October into November, and yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, you had a 2020 month, if there was anyone I know who had one, and I'm glad that you made it out to day 3 of November.
Yeah.
Granted, it's election night, so who
Yeah.
knows what November will bring, but
Yeah,
listeners,
exactly.
we don't have election results.
We don't.
Oh.
Things are, yeah, right now, yeah, it's just we're recording so that we are not constantly like hitting refresh to see what's going on.
That's why Will's recording.
That's my thing tonight.
I'm recording because Alaska's the last one.
Yeah. But by the time they get to you guys, hopefully we'll know something one way or another.
We'll know something.
Yeah.
I don't know which way it'll go or what it'll be, but we'll know something. We'll know. I think we'll know by then, like if it'll be a long night or a short night.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Other things we know about from news that broke this week is the premiere dates for our Arrowverse shows, which I heard that they're not calling it Arrowverse anymore. They're calling it the CW verse.
Yeah, whatever. It's the Arrowverse.
Lame.
Yeah.
Batwoman will strike back on January 17th, followed by Black Lightning on February 8th. The Flash on February 23rd, and Superman and Lois will also be premiering on February 23rd. It's like they are putting all their chips on Batwoman right now.
Yeah, they definitely are. I think, especially given that Supergirl is going to be going off the air, I think the Flash is, is getting up there in years as well. So, in the next phase of the Arrowverse, yeah, they are definitely putting all their chips in on Batwoman.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. Yeah, the Flash is. It's interesting because the Flash is also premiering alongside Superman and Lois, and which I thought was going to be different. I thought it was going to be premiered. I don't know anymore, but I just think that's interesting that show is being paired up with the newbies, so to speak, to try to help them with ratings. But
yeah,
I'm glad to see dates. Dates are nice.
Yep.
Dates are also very fickle things these days.
Yeah, but we know that those shows have been able to go into production and have been able to, by this point have at least a few episodes in the can. So, heaven forbid that there is an outbreak on set, which I know seeing all the cast members' photos from on Instagram and Twitter and stuff, it seems like there's a bubble that they're in. So hopefully that's able to keep the virus out, and yeah, and we don't want cast or crew to come down with it. So hopefully they'll be able to stick to this date and be able to finish out the season. And I think as far as they're planning on doing the full slate, I think I saw where CBS was cutting back their orders on some of their shows, but so far I think the CW was planning on doing a whole season.
Going to be a long year in 2021 then for them, because they're gonna end this season and then have a month break before returning for the next season.
Yeah, but that's true. If they have any side projects that they were hoping to do next year, that they may have to cancel them or really try to say, hey, squeeze it in with my month off.
Yeah. Another show we know definitely it will be premiering in 2020 is WandaVision, and apparently there was a spoiler. And I'm against spoilers, but I also listen to a lot of information about this kind of stuff, and I was just curious what was the spoiler. Will, do you know what the spoiler was?
So I whenever I saw the rundown earlier today, I was like, "Huh, I missed this," but I did see the spoiler. So
Hmm. Hmm.
so and for our listeners, we'll give you the benefit if you don't want to listen to the spoiler. Jump ahead to the next timestamp. But if you do want to hear the spoiler, Sarah, go ahead and drop
Okay, Thanos. No,
it.
no, Quicksilver.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
and I'm mad at us for not thinking about that. Not
well,
not thinking about Quicksilver potentially being in this show.
well, here's the interesting thing. So once I did find out about this Quicksilver returning, then if it gets into the X-Men universe and then the
Uh-huh.
MCU.
Oh yeah.
So I guess according to a thing I read on Reddit and another article somewhere else, the actor who played Aaron Taylor Johnson, who played
Mhm.
Quicksilver in the film, in the MCU film, Ultron, does not want to come back to the MCU. So that got people theory spiraling that it'll be Evan Peters from the X-Men Days of Future Past, his version of Quicksilver. And of
Oh,
course, that opens the whole door to the multiverse and bringing the X-Men into the MCU. And so that, so those are the prevailing thoughts that are out there right now.
oh God. Okay, I was so happy when it was just Aaron Taylor Johnson, and now I'm so mad because I really do like Evan Peters and his version of Quicksilver, but I really don't like the casting of the rest of the mutants where he's from. I don't want that verse to cross over. I want a new verse and I want them to get it right. And more importantly, I want to see Rogue. But so I like how I went from a high to a low in the span of what, 2 minutes?
Yeah, not even.
Well, I can't have nice things.
Now, again, this whole premise of the spoiler of Quicksilver is from a Funko Pop. So
The most reliable news outlet there is.
yeah, it was from
If
yeah, it
they
was
don't need votes, we would have had the no.
yep.
Oh man. Oh jeez. Yeah, I guess then, Will, considering everything you just explained, this is like a half spoiler because the
Yeah.
fact that we know we're gonna see a version of Quicksilver,
Mhm.
very fascinating, and it also just makes me more excited for the show in general
Yeah, yeah,
because we just need something from the MCU at this point. We're dead thirsty on it. But also B, it's just continues to add to this whole thing that we've been discussing since it was announced that WandaVision's really going to be the show that kicks off this next phase and really allows this universe to expand and grow and go into new directions that we never thought would be on the table before.
exactly, exactly. And yeah, I mean, and I think that's what this Disney Plus series will, give us that opportunity to really kick off things. And and when we saw the teaser trailer, I guess it was last month or late September, really did get folks excited about the potentials in the multiverse being opened up,
Mhm.
especially when we saw the classic costumes of both Vision and the Scarlet Witch. So it's yeah, I was a little ambivalent about the series at first,
Mhm.
but the more I learned, the more I am looking forward to this. Not only because we've been starved of MCU this year, but also I think it just seems like there's just so many intriguing story possibilities here,
Yeah.
with this show. And speaking of the show and also internet and Reddit spoilers, apparently when I was prepping for tonight, I saw another story, for whatever it's worth, where I
Okay.
guess Scarlet Witch's stunt double, so
Uh-huh.
Olsen's stunt double, was apparently taking a photo in what at least the caption said they were in London. So, and of course, Doctor Strange is starting production in London. So, so the internet was like theorizing that, hey, put one and one together. So Elizabeth Olsen's stunt double is here in London, possibly. And so that with Doctor Strange is going to be filming in London. So therefore,
we already did that. We've done that.
Well, yeah, we knew, I know, but people, it's the internet. People got to fill content.
But the way
I'm just saying.
you knew what you were doing. You're like, I'm gonna wind this up, make it a deal, and then just say she was in London, and I'm like, what?
Well, yeah. I'm trying to break news. Hell, anybody, I have a platform here, so I just figured I'd toss it out in the wind. But I saw. My sources told me. My sources being some page I read, I think Inverse or whatever, that said that. So
yeah,
it wasn't we got it covered. So
you come back to me when your sources tell you that Charlie Cox is on the Spider-Man set, and then we'll talk.
Okay, we'll do. Well, that was the other thing this week.
I want to hear about.
Yeah, that was the other thing this week where it was like, oh yeah, the rights to Daredevil went back to Marvel. So apparently.
Before we get into the main topic of Baby Yoda and how adorable he is, or he or she is, or the child is, we do have one bit of news that we have to talk about because Sean Connery has passed away, and he is a legend and has been in so many movies and died at 90 years old, full, complete life.
Yeah.
Which all people can ever ask for.
Exactly.
And it was a shock, but not as big of a shock as like a Chadwick Boseman passing or others who are just cut to lives are cut too short. So
yeah. You're right. I mean, it was one of those things where you really do celebrate the life and career of someone like Sean Connery, because obviously, such basically put the fingerprint and his stamp on a character that, yes, there have been other actors to come after him, but really established the role and when people think James Bond, I mean, you can't. It's Sean Connery, and then also so many other characters. I mean, of course, some people, depending on where you were in life or when you were introduced to him, he was Henry Jones Sr. With Indiana Jones films, or obviously I really enjoyed him in The Untouchables as Malone.
Untouchables is classic.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know why. One movie that stands out to me is this movie called Entrapment with Catherine Zeta-Jones. I do not know why it stands out. It's probably like a B movie. I've only seen once or twice, but for some reason that's where, and maybe that's when I started to recognize him in other things, because I mean, I've seen The Untouchables. I haven't seen Bond, but we've had talks about Bond and my relationship with that character. But it's Sean Connery. It's that name, classic movie star. It's funny. It's not funny, but it really is funny how everyone points out his last movie.
Yeah, like the League of was it the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah. I actually watched that, and it was and I watched it, and that's all, and I'll just leave it there.
Me too. I watched it. I left it there. Have not returned or thought of that movie until now. But then again, he made his exit.
Yeah, And also Daryl Hammond. I mean, and his SNL, with him on Jeopardy. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just. I mean, there's so many things you can say about Sean Connery, and again, just celebrate his career and may he rest in peace. But yeah, just couldn't. Yeah, we couldn't do our show this week without taking time to reflect on his career.
Yeah, he wasn't even on the list to watch. You know how there's that watch list of, okay, if these names are trendy.
Yeah, exactly. I know everybody was like, okay, check on Betty White, y'all. Check on Betty.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we had only known.
Yeah.
All right, so we are now at the point in the show where Will is going to do most of the talking, because I did watch the Mandalorian season 2 premiere, and I have very few thoughts on it. So, Will,
Yeah.
we got Mando back. What is your overall impression?
All right. So I've been thinking about how I was going to talk about the Mandalorian tonight, and so I've decided I'm going to approach it in two ways. I'm going to approach it as a fan, and then I'm going to approach it as as a critic. So yeah, so the fan in me loved it. I will freely say that without a single drop of hesitation. Um, it was, whenever the show came on, it reminded me of why I really enjoyed the first season. I thought it picked up the elements of the first season and really carried a lot of things forward. I think from a fan and also from a critical standpoint, I think the show is doing a very good job of expanding the Star Wars universe, but also in a way that is not like just gimmicky. I mean, it was like it's in context, like just little subtle, just little things, like as they were walking down that alley and you see the graffiti of the stormtrooper,
Right.
and
Right.
and C-3PO and of course the Tusken Raiders, and really get deeper into their story, and so there's things as a fan I really 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 enjoy about this show,
Mhm.
and really each episode of The Mandalorian exposes what was so wrong with the most recent trilogy, and
Oh,
that
God.
at least with The Mandalorian, which is the blessing and a curse, because this is where I'm gonna get critical, is but there's a story and there's an arc and there's an overall plan now,
Uh-huh.
and so that's the great thing. Only the critical part of me about that story is that I will admit that during the premiere this week, when I was watching
Uh-huh.
it, there were some points where I was just like, we got a lot of exposition. We got a lot of like, we've done this before in the first season where we're just traveling somewhere and we're just talking and we have these expansive, beautiful visuals.
Yep. Yep.
But I was like, I've been here before.
Yep.
So that's the critical part. But on the other hand, again, they have a story and they're doing a good job of telling this story, and they're introducing good minor characters like you know uh, Timothy Olyphant, the Marshal, who was what's his name? I can't remember.
Tony Marshall. That's his name.
Yeah, the Marshal. But no, he actually has an actual name. He's a very
I
minor
know he has
bit
an
character.
actual name, but we don't remember that. We're not
Yeah,
in we don't need to know
yeah,
that. We
yeah,
just call
yeah.
him Marshall.
Yeah, but he's a minor footnote in the. I mean, he's a character from from one of the books, and again, you know, that's what I do like about this series is
Right.
you don't have to like. I mean, I'm a Star Wars fan, but I'm not one of those fans who like reads all the books, and I still haven't watched all the Clone Wars and all those little side stories. So yeah, but again, the genius of John Favreau and Filoni with Mandalorian is you don't have to be so well versed in all the other elements to enjoy the story. and that's what I
Well,
think is the success about the Mandalorian. And now I'll step back and let you give your thoughts.
I as probably a lesser fan than you, um, I am and more of a critic when it comes to just about everything we watch. um,
That's why we
yeah,
work.
they this we have seen this episode before. I literally at one point got up and started walking around and doing chores around my house while it was playing on in the background. I was so bored. Like I feel like I've seen this exact episode before because or a few different times because this is a very classic Mandalorian episode where
Mhm,
he needs a piece of information, he goes, and while he's there, he realizes that a group of people, because of the way the Empire ruled, um, are have like fallen apart or been raided or held hostage by some kind of um, other entity, whether that be a big beast or a force of raiders or something. And then Mando, just doing his Mando thing, brings peace and manages to get what he needs and help them at the same time. Yay!
yeah,
Everyone's happy. We've seen this before.
yeah, yeah.
So it's so annoying to me. However, um, I will always stop and watch Baby Yoda just be
Yeah,
adorable and delightful.
yeah.
I did as the episode progressed, I did appreciate Timothy Olyphant more
Mhm,
and more in his character and what they were doing because especially by the very, very end, you're like, okay, I get it now. Got
yeah,
it. Good. Let's go.
yeah.
It just it wasn't it's not an opener that I expected more. I'll
Mhm.
say that.
Okay.
I was really pulled in by the trailers for this season because they talked about Jedi. They
Mhm.
talked about mythos. And I'm not and trust me, I don't want it to go to Skywalker or anything like that. But I do like to understand more of the Force and also of these other elements that for whatever reason have kind of they've kind of like held back on
Yeah.
and I feel like we've been teased a lot. So I personally I don't know why they chose to do this as the intro. Um Another positive though, Will, is I did really like the cold open
Yes.
because it was Mando being a bounty hunter,
Mhm.
not Mando being a hero or a savior for a group of people, but he's a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
Let him be a bounty hunter more.
Yep.
That whole sequence was just so cool because he was allowed to be the Mandalorian.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. And
And kid was brought for the was every time they showed Yoda, um, and yeah, to me it will be Yoda until someone tells me otherwise. Um, every time he rode sidecar, I was
oh,
like,
I love it.
that is awesome.
That is that yeah. Those yeah. Yeah. Totally agree with you. That was so cute and just he's just like riding sidecar on the skimmer on the speeder and yeah, that was pretty dope. I have to admit. I mean, those are the moments. I'm glad you brought up the cold open because that again resets us all because about who the Mandalorian is,
Hmm.
and and that's because we get so wrapped up in the child and oh how cute he is and everything, but again, to my point about story, we have a story to tell. And this is a
Right.
story about, as you rightly pointed out, he is a bounty hunter and he needs information and he will get that information however he needs to get it.
Yeah, and maybe that's also what I was trying to get at when I my mind immediately went to the Force, but just understanding more about Mandalorian culture, right?
Hmm.
Which they did a good job of placing hints because of the armor and everything we learned about Marshall, and
Yeah.
then who we see at the very end, and just knowing where Mando is probably going with this.
Yep.
There, like that's another thing we didn't get too much about in the first season.
Right.
Is really understanding the Mandalorian culture. So I want to see more of that, and I'm very so you're right. There were some very significant highs in this episode. There were just like these long tentative walks to get between each high. And always in sand. Like I thought Star Wars hated sand.
Yeah, they love Tatooine. I mean, that's when all in doubt, go back to Tatooine because there's a lot of stories on that desert planet, and we continue to see. We've got Mos Eisley, we have Mos Ispa, we've had this new place, where the guild, where the mining guild was. Um, Set up. But also again, I like that because it reminded us about how this story fits into the overall Star Wars universe, because it is after the Empire fell, and it really gives you a more context for how the Empire, even though it was a dictatorship, did manage to keep the order with a lot of those planets on the outer rim.
Mm-hmm.
And so and that's what I like about this show, is that it does get into the politics of Star Wars again, and not as ham-fisted as it did in the middle trilogy with that, with episodes 1 through 3, but really does explore those elements, and now serves as I guess a bridge for why the First Order came about, whenever we in the cinematic universe, we get back to the Force Awakens, and we see the First Order, and because of what we were shown in this episode, we really see why people were willing to allow for that type of entity to rise up again, especially if a lot of these systems were being decimated by lawlessness.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's Law and Order, and whether you agree with Empire or not, it still brought some sense of balance and order, for very negative reasons, but it
Yeah,
still allowed for there to be a structure and a system in place. So when
yeah,
that's taken away, unless you have something to put in its place, everything will crumble. So
yeah,
it
yeah,
it yeah, you're it is another good point you have about why this story is important, and especially in terms of timelines, and making sure that Mando stops at every single planet
yeah,
and stumbles upon every single group in need of a hero.
yeah, yeah. But he's not a
I don't-
hero. He's not a hero. He's, because I say that because, of course, the easy, way with the story would have been like, okay, he worked with the Marshal, and even though the Marshal stole Boba Fett's, somehow acquired Boba Fett's armor, which again was, you know, for folks who are well versed in the Star Wars universe, can tell it better than I. But I guess they took a story here in the television show from the books, and made some tweaks to it to fit the narrative for the Mandalorian series, and of course, everything in Star Wars is always told from a certain point of view. So
Mhm.
so what was happening in the books, you could say, well, here is the Marshal's version of how he acquired the armor from the Jawas.
Right.
So um, but again, what I liked about it is, to your point earlier, Mando stuck to his core, which is, I came for the armor. I'm going to leave with the armor. And
Did he come for the armor, like
he did.
specifically?
Well, he was looking for he remember whenever the John Leguizamo's character in
Right.
the Fight Club,
Yep.
he was want that the Barsar, and he shared that there was on Tatooine this other person wearing Mandalorian armor. So I think that was part of his mission was to, in addition to finding people who can help get him information to find the child's people. I think there was also the element of, we've given that all the Mandalorian were wiped out. I think he was trying to reclaim
I
what was
knew that
rightfully theirs.
Yeah, I knew he was trying to find another Mandalorian because of everything that happened.
Yeah.
But I didn't think that he went there specifically for the armor. It's just that when he realized that it was a poser,
Yeah.
well, give that back.
Yeah.
And now he has it, and that sets us up for another crossing of the paths of another character in him, and
Yep.
and which again excites me because we're going to see multiple perspectives on the Mandalorian,
Mm-hmm.
and what that means to be one, and also be disgraced from being one, and everything. So there's a lot of interesting ways that they can go with that, while all along trying to reunite this child with their people. I mean, that's essentially the parallel that they're counting on, is Mando is trying to reunite with his people,
Mm-hmm.
and also reunite this child with his people.
Yep.
So
But I have to say, when we did at the end of the episode, when we did see Boba Fett, I was like, okay, I like this. I like what they're doing with this. I like where they can go with this. Because because he's just like Jar Jinn, he's also not a Mandalorian. And as far as we know, he wasn't. At least our Mando was correctly brought into the order proper, whereas Boba Fett just somehow acquired that armor. So maybe we'll get some more backstory about that in this upcoming season.
yeah. Time will tell. Time will tell. And that is it for us on the Mandalorian season 2 premiere. We will be continuing to watch all of the episodes that it has in store for us. But in the meantime, we have been watching a few other things, which also, This Is Us season 5 premiered this past week. Will. You need to watch this episode.
Okay.
I just I know how much of a completionist you are, but I think the season 5 premiere, if you watch it and you don't like the show, then you'll never like the series. But if you watch it and it works, you're gonna go back from the start and binge. They tackle Black Lives Matter.
Huh.
In the in such a fascinating way, because for those who are unfamiliar with the show, including Will, you have Sterling K. Brown's character, who is a Black man who was raised by a white family. And so to have the Black Lives Matter, they do Floyd's death and everything, and the reaction to that, and just have this character, or the whole events, all of the events, examined through his lens, where he has his Black family, but he also has his family that raised him, and all of this emotion and everything. It was brilliant, and they're going to give Sterling K. Brown an Emmy.
I saw the promos for it, and I was just like, I gotta watch this again.
For 40 minutes, he was on the verge of crying. For 40 minutes straight, you could sense the tension and the turmoil in him, and it was just beautiful what he did in all of his interactions and everything else. I mean, they tackle not only Black Lives Matter, but they also tackle COVID. And my mom and I were talking about it, and why this show works is it's not that they had a Black Lives Matter episode. They had a This Is Us episode that featured a storyline about that
Huh.
movement.
Huh.
And because at the end of the day, it all goes back to the family. It all goes back to the big three and their lives intersecting with one another and overlapping and getting screwed up and family bonds and relationships and a whole bunch of other stuff. And so they were able to just handle it in a very, very beautifully way. And I'm sure this episode's just gonna get a slew of Emmys.
Huh. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, the promos when I saw it, I was like, oh, one, I got to get your thoughts on it, and two, I was definitely thinking like, okay, I need to. I know I've missed because this is in its what, fifth season.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've watched most of season one, and I was like, I need to get back. I should pick this up because I just feel like this from the promos themselves. I was like, this episode is probably gonna be one of those ones that will get me back into the show.
Yeah. I think it will. It was just I every now and then This Is Us does an episode where I just think about it all the time and I rewatch and I'm just because like the performances and the writing.
Hmm.
The episode does do one thing which I'm so mad at. So, but it just I hate when it gets too serendipitous. Um, they can be clever with all of their timelines and characters and well, what will happen to this one? What does this mean and everything? But then again, every now and then they do something where I'm like, you just jumped the shark. That
Yeah,
should have not happened. That no. Why are we going back there? But they'll figure it out. But overall, I think if people are not watching it, I think starting with this first episode in season 5, because This Is Us is written in a way where you can jump on, understand an episode, but
hmm,
also be curious, like, okay, well, how did we get here? Because they also very much pick up exactly where they left off with the
ah,
previous season.
okay,
Oh, do they? Because some crap went down with the family during the finale, and some things were said, which just added a whole nother layer of complexity with everything Randall was going through.
mm, mm.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So I will be doing many reviews of This Is Us.
All right, yeah, and I may be able to join in those mini reviews.
Speaking about joining in, I heard something. This could just be something on Reddit, but is Will watching Lovecraft Country?
I started. I did. I finally started. I got into it last week, but I wanted to finish the Comedy Store, and so I was at my parents' house, and they have Showtime, so that one took priority over Lovecraft since I can watch Lovecraft here at home. So
Interesting. How
yeah,
far did you get with Lovecraft? Like first
I
episode?
just the first episode, but I
Okay.
started it though. But I do intend to finish it up. But like I said, I wanted to finish the Comedy Store because I really got into that one.
See, I fell off of the comedy store. I
Oh,
haven't watched it since Joe Rogan returned.
okay. Yeah. Joe Rogan return episode was interesting. It was good, but the finale and Louis C.K. being the spoiler
Um,
alert was back. I just really uh, really enjoyed just how everything came full circle and how they talked about Mitzi Shore and just the dark years of the Comedy Store and how things rebounded, and it was just and just seeing all the talent and the stories like Jim Carrey and Damon Wayans and just so many I know whenever we talked about it before, you were not a big fan of the jumping back and forth, but over time, I actually like that. It's just sort of seeing the stories in context, and even as I joked with you, I think via DM, I was like, I forgot that Michael Keaton was a stand-up comic years ago, in an early part, when he started out his
Yeah.
career, and so many things like that, where where you see so many of these folks who have gone on to do such amazing things. Many of them got their start and groomed their craft at the Comedy Store. And
Mm-hmm.
and another thing that you and I, the program we mutually enjoy with Schmodown Entertainment Network, and thinking about how Christian Harloff is got his start as a stand-up comic before doing other things with WWE and other things, and how he's talked about going back to stand-up. With Mark Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then watching the Comedy Store and seeing, how big name people, Chris Rocks of the world and Eddie Murphys of the world, and God rest his soul, Robert Williams and Steve Martin and others, you know, may show up in the main room and do a bit, just to,
Yeah.
it was just it was a real fascinating documentary. So if you have any interest in stand-up comedy or, I totally recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the few episodes I watched, but I have a serious problem with the editing of it.
Mhm.
I think that it could have been better constructed better, because it did a lot of, oh, like, this is a big moment in the past, and then they would jump forward and then return back to it, and I'm just like, stay in one freaking timeline, okay?
Yeah,
Tell
yeah,
the story from start to finish instead of all this, like, back, forth, over here, over there. It's like, whoa, all right. But I think if you take pieces of those episodes and just put up a 5-minute video just about that one story or that one comic, and I also find it fascinating. So I might go back to it now
yeah,
that you said that it really ends strong,
yeah.
which is nice to hear. Another thing that we are both watching is The Right Stuff. Um, did
Yeah, I did catch it.
The Right Stuff. So how did you go about watching this week's episode, considering I implanted the mannequin of John Gillette?
It kept ringing. Your voice kept ringing in my head every time he was on screen, when Patrick was on the screen.
Which is really sad because he had a few emotional moments in
Yeah,
that.
yeah, he did. So I like. So this episode was interesting. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched it. I won't get too deep into things. They really dealt with a situation where one of the astronauts was photographed in a very compromising position,
Hmm.
and and this story was also told in the movie version of The Right Stuff as well. So bear with me, folks. I know I keep going back and forth, but I do so because, again, it's a telling of a story that's been told before in a different medium,
Hmm.
as far as theatrical film, and the way that they handled this one in the TV show, I actually, in a way, liked a little better, in the sense
Okay.
that they really got into who, you know, it was touched on in the movie, as far as like Shepard. Shepard just didn't like Glenn's preachy attitude. Um, but how they handled it here, where, you know, it the thing that this series does, it doesn't paint a very flattering picture of John Glenn. Uh, It really doesn't. And the movie doesn't either. But I won't get too deep into the story because I don't want to spoil it for folks who haven't watched it. But I'll say now, spoiler alert for the people. For if you are watching it, you can continue. If not, then skip ahead to our next topic. But whenever he like ordered the burgers and the beers and then starts to proselytize over the rest of the astronauts. Uh, it really just showed how even though he thinks he's deadly do right, Boy Scout, super virtuous dude. He's really, they really paint him as this very arrogant, self-righteous prick, and because Shepard came to him in a moment of crisis and really just confide in him to help him get out of this situation. And then of course Glenn tried to use that to his advantage as far as pecking order for launch position. So
it's interesting your reaction to this episode because I have a very different one.
Yeah.
I actually like John Glenn in this episode.
Okay. I didn't like John, and I didn't like John even in the film version when they have this showdown about morality and what the astronauts are dealing with. I thought, I think in both situations, to me, even though Alan Shepard was clearly in the wrong here, I still maintain some level of sympathy for him.
Right. Which, and I think is exactly what they want because we know Shepard is a flawed character. We've known since the very first episode he goes behind his wife's back and sleeps with other women. So for whatever reason, they kind of normalized his character doing that at the very beginning. So this isn't as much of a shock that he was, suddenly they caught it on camera and now he needs help. Who is the best person to go to? Well, John, because John knows how to play the media game.
Yeah.
This is where I don't understand. Well, it's not that I don't understand. It's that to me, I didn't like how this was written because from my perspective, John didn't really do anything behind his back. Like that they played it in a way where it seemed like, yeah, why wouldn't he have called their PR person and told them like it was the middle of the night.
Yeah.
He was desperate. He was also probably overtired. He was also, I think what the writers have also done in how they've portrayed John Glenn so far is he does prioritize the mission. He does get annoyed with the other astronauts for their behavior because he's just like, guys, we're going to lose everything. Because yes, does John want to win? Yes. But John also knows there's nothing to win if the program goes away.
True. That's true.
So for me, the hamburger meeting, which will be forever what we call it. I didn't like John's approach to bringing them and talking down to them because he is condescending. But I also was just like, whoa, Al, sit back down. Yeah. You were on his side. You knew he did you a big favor. And yet he made one tiny mistake and suddenly he's the biggest jerk of them all. Are you kidding me? Like, wow, talk about a drama queen. Jesus. So it's just like, either they wrote it really well because you saw both sides and you understood how this happened, and honestly, it's just pure misunderstanding, or they wrote it poorly because it was just bizarre reactions in terms of the situation.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, he did manage to pull the right strings,
Hmm.
and his wife still doesn't know that she's been cheated on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And John, his space program is still afloat
Yep.
because it didn't get leaked. So,
Yeah. Yeah. True. True. I mean, I think it. I mean, like I said, I enjoyed the episode. I mean, I think it was very, to your point, it was very well constructed because I mean, listen to it. I mean, we both got two different perspectives from
mhm,
it. So
mhm.
I think so the writers clearly succeeded in what they were trying to achieve there.
Yeah.
Because yeah, so and I think that's the mark of a very good television program or movie is people come away with differing feelings about how these characters performed and reacted in those situations.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think that looking back and having this discussion now makes me like the episode overall a little bit better because you are supposed to see these two characters, two sides of the same coin. And they both have their own separate pathos. And even though we know history and we know a little bit about what happens, how they get there and how they change is interesting. Um, and so it looks like they're doing the right stuff.
Yeah.
Um, they're they're doing it right. They didn't do themselves any favor when they casted Patrick J. Adams, but whatever.
Yeah.
Jake McDorman, he knows how to play this character though,
Yeah.
because this character almost very crazy similar to a character he played on where I first stumbled upon him, Greek, an old ABC Family show classic. And he plays very much the quote unquote bad boy who jerk who you're not supposed to like, but over time you actually sympathize with more than other characters.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think his casting was spot on. But
Yeah, it was. I mean, he's definitely one of my favorites out of the series. And one character I wish they would spend a little bit more on would be some would be some of the characters like Gus Grissom or Deke, because they seem to be kind of it really is focused clearly focusing on Cooper, Shepard, and Glenn, which those probably were the uh, had the most personality out of the group. But I think some of the other supporting characters uh, could also you know share get a little bit more love. But
I
yeah,
agree.
yeah,
I agree with that. I mean, you got a lot of astronauts to explore,
yeah,
and that's something also that was lackluster in this episode is you're supposed to realize how much because we theoretically have been on the journey with them.
mhm,
And they say that they've bonded and they actually like each other a lot more than they realize. Now, that's nice for them, but the viewers are supposed to be like, yeah, well, we like all of these guys. If you had to give us a choice of who would go first, what would we do?
mhm,
And you didn't really get that sense. You knew two of the names.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, obviously, but
yeah,
still.
yeah,
So I kind of I think that you're right on how the writers they could really explore all of these astronauts and really make this about all of the characters, but they have kind of zeroed in on three in particular.
yeah, yeah.
Man, I think that is it for us tonight.
I think so. I think so. Covered a
Uh,
lot there. Yeah,
Yeah, we covered a lot. Not as much as usual, but then again, it's been a slow news week
yeah,
given other big events going on in the world.
yep.
Will, why don't you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me at Will and Polk. That's WILLMPOLK.
And you can follow me at SJ Belmont, SJBELMONT. Please follow our crew on Twitter at CNN Nerd. Friend us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. But most importantly, rate, subscribe, and comment on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Good night, Geek Out. You're welcome.